what made the difference? Like, what did you have to overcome in order to be in the space that you're in right now and serving people?
I had to be a little bit of a risk taker. So moving away from home was very unusual. Being with people who I thought were very worldly wise, and being able to open yourself up to those new experiences and just come out of your shell a little bit and just participate.
The Collaborative Entrepreneur. Okay, guys, welcome back to The Collaborative Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Tracy Currington. And on this show, we are intending to build partnerships that help grow our business. That's why this show exists. And you may be wondering, what is a collaborative entrepreneur anyway? Well, collaboration is a whole lot better than cooperation. I think cooperation means that you have to be together, where collaboration is basically you're working jointly. It means it's being produced or conducted by two or more people that are working together because they want to be in that space. And of course, you should know by now, entrepreneur being a big buzzword in this 21st century, that an entrepreneur is just basically one that's willing to take more than normal risks in order to bring forward what they have even in their mind and their heart, something that doesn't currently exist, they're trying to bring forward. And if you've ever wanted to delve into the mind of a entrepreneur, maybe that one that you see is going places and you're very fascinated with what they're doing, you have come to the right place, because that's what we do on this show. And I have on the call today an entrepreneur that I know you're going to appreciate. I know that's going to drop some gold. In fact, just before we pushed record, he'd already dropped some gold for me. And in fact, he didn't even know that he dropped some gold. He had to write down what he just said. So it was really, really good. I know you're going to enjoy that. And I think in the business, we call that an unconscious competent. Like you're just amazing. And you're putting it out there like, oh, I didn't know how brilliant that was until you said it. But this man has spent the last 40 years helping executives drive breakthrough improvements in their people and their organization. He has worked in the energy industry, the chemical and manufacturing industries. He's served for Fortune 500s like Shell, BP, Air Products, Honeywell, DuPont, and he has a really cool accent from London. But he's developed all kinds of programs. The list could go on and go on. I think where I got to connect with him was in our 10X community from Grant Cardone, as he's also a 10X business coach, and he's working with small to medium-sized businesses through his own brand, what's called By the Numbers. What was really cool about him, and maybe if we have time, we'll get to dive into this man has climbed Kilimanjaro. He has been to base camp on Mount Everest, and currently, don't let anybody know this, but he wants to swim the channel.
Oh.
The English Channel. Oh my goodness, right? I just let the cat out of the bag, and I hope that was okay. But in our conversation today, we'll be talking with him about business, about what he's currently involved in, some of the lessons he's learned along the way, his backstory. That's always helpful to learn where somebody's come from, especially when they have humble beginnings to where they are today. It just means that you can do it too, right? And that's really what we want to do. We want to be an encouragement to you, our viewers, and an encouragement to each other. So I went to Chick-fil-A today. I got my coffee ready. I've got I'm using a Remarkable today. And so I've got my pen, my notepad. I am ready to rumble and learn from our guest entrepreneur. His name is Mick Holly. So Mick, welcome to the show today.
Wow. Thank you so much. And your show, Tracy, is aptly named because, as you mentioned, just our collaboration in talking in the pre-show, I just said something off the cuff because you asked me a question and it let out something which we both sat back and thought, oh, that was pretty cool. So just talking to people, being curious about what they do, inviting them to participate and share. There's so much knowledge and gold. So I'm excited about today's show, Tracy, for sure.
Oh, thank you so much, Mick. And by the way, if you're wondering on the show, like what brilliance did he say? He said something that was like C.S. Lewis could have written it. He said something that like J.R.R. Tolkien could have said it in his novels in Lord of the Rings. He said, you got to leave to go anywhere. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's Frodo Baggins, or that somebody said that in one of the Lord of the Rings, but no, they didn't. That's Mick Holly for you. So appreciate that very much. Now you know what brilliance he just let out. That's so true. You got to leave to go anywhere.
Exactly. The question was, Tracy asked me, why did you leave the UK, which is where I'm from originally. I'm from a small town in the middle of England called Derby. And Tracy said, well, why did you, I said, you got to leave to go anywhere. I think that's why the British Navy was very successful, because it's just a rock in the middle of the ocean. And so we had to go and travel to get anywhere. You're very fortunate being in the United States. If you're watching this, you have 50 beautiful states that you can pretty much drive to. If you're living in the UK, you've got to get on a ship and sail away.
This, and by the way, those watching this, Mick's no stranger to the U.S. He's been in the States for 26 years, and I'm so excited. Mick, give us your story. Give us a little backdrop, and up to the point that you're in right now. If you can break that down for us.
Yeah, to give you a little summary. As I said, my town was quite small, quite parochial, and I was the first person in our family to actually leave our town to go to university. Back then, not everybody went to college or to university. It's become much more prevalent now, but it was the rarity back then. So I traveled off and I was very, very scared because I'd never been out of my town, never been on an aeroplane, never stayed in a hotel. And there I was with all of these people who intimidated me immensely. But by socializing with those people, I saw a broader world. And I remember saying to my mum one time, we were having a beer in a place that was just across the road from a Marriott hotel. And I said to my mum, I said, one day, Mum, I'm going to stay in a hotel and I'm going to fly on a plane. I'm going to be part of a jet set. And, fast forward, when I came to the US 26 years ago, I was on a plane every day and I lived out of hotels. You just be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. So good. And what a great story. What a great story. Like that. I love the humble beginnings. I love the like where you're at today. And I know we'll get into this about like how you serve people, but just thinking about, not even having an airplane, not even being around a lot of people, being intimidated by people, and now serving them like you do is what made the difference? Like, what did you have to overcome in order to be in the space that you're in right now and serving people?
Well, I just think you had to be a little bit of a risk taker. So moving away from home was very, very unusual. Being with people who I thought were very worldly wise. I think a lot of them were a lot like me, but put on a good game face, and being able to open yourself up to those new experiences and just come out of your shell a little bit and just participate. Yeah. And so that was a real booster for me. So our university is only 3 years, and we specialize typically in one subject. So I just did chemistry for 3 years. So I was in a lab every day, cooking up things, exploding things, getting into trouble. So I came out with a degree in chemistry, and I knew I wanted to go into business. So I had an ambition to be in business. And as I looked at all of the executives who were running the big chemical companies in the UK, they all had PhDs. They were doctor this and doctor that. So I thought I needed a PhD, which is another 3 years of very, very intense research-based study. Yeah. And I did that for a year, more beakers and test tubes. I couldn't take it. I decided I needed to be in front of people. I saw an advert in the newspaper. Hey, we're looking for medical reps, which is pharmaceutical salespeople. If you've got a science degree, we'll give you a car. I thought, great. Yeah. You'll find this quite astonishing. I saw this advert and I thought, I'm now 21 years old, 22. I've never driven a car. I don't have a driving license because we have great transportation systems. So I thought better go take a driving test. So I took a driving test, and they gave me this brand new car. It was a little scary. So I became a salesperson. And so Tracy, you asked me what did I have to overcome. So they gave me this training, classroom training, and then they sent me out into the field. And I remember I had an appointment with a general practitioner in a place called Four Marks in in Hampshire. It's in the southern part of England. So I'm sitting there in my vehicle and I'm thinking, I've had 8 weeks worth of training and I'm going to meet a doctor who's had 10 years of training, and I was scared to death. I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm on my own, and I had to get out of the car, pull my little briefcase out, go in, sit down with this doctor and talk about the products that I had in my portfolio. And I was scared to death. That first week, I think it was the only time in my life I lost weight. I was just in a complete panic. And I managed to get through the first week and then the second week. And then I thought, actually, it's not so bad. And I got a little bit better at doing that and built up my confidence and my sales skills. And then I decided I'd like to go and work for a company that, you know, where they really revere salespeople. So I got a job with IBM, and I had IBM sales and business training, one of the most fabulous training companies. The people were excellent. And you know that expression, you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Yep. You know, IBM was full of these luminaries, really, I would say entrepreneurs who actually felt comfortable working in an institution because they all had great business acumen, and they're all very, very different, but they liked the comfort of being in that big brand and were able to ply their trade in there. So that was my, you know, formative sales training. So once I'd got that sales stamp in my passport, I could pretty much go anywhere from there. So
yeah. I would imagine IBM, especially. When would that have been that you were with IBM?
It was 1984. It was funny because I'd met this one of my friends. She was a lady. She worked for IBM. She was in the HR department, and I said, you know, I'm really interested in working for IBM. She said, this is how it works, right? I can get you all these forms and you fill in these forms and they get sent to this person and they review. And if you pass that review, it goes to this person. And then we might call you for an interview. And I thought, you know, salespeople don't follow the rules. Salespeople tilt the playing field in their favor. I thought, I'm not going to do that. Right. So I went in, and it wasn't Google then. I went into the telephone directory and I found out the telephone number for one of the IBM branch offices. I picked up the phone and I called them up and said, hey, this is Mick Holly. I'm a salesman. You need to hire me. And blow me if he didn't give me an interview, and then I got the job.
That's salespeople hit the phones.
So one lesson for the audience here is don't be afraid of the phone. Just pick it up, and people are very generally very respectful and responsive. Yes, they're very, very busy, but you can accomplish major things by picking up the phone and just talking to somebody.
Yeah, that's such a good, and well, it's one that serves me, because that's one that, like, you said it in there, like it was kind of subtle, but you said don't be afraid about interrupting their day, because they are very busy, right? But they're generally apt to talk to you. And I had to do that. I have to overcome that just why in the world would I be afraid of this guy? Mm-hmm. So one of the sales trainers for Grant Cardone's that you're probably familiar with, Dave Robards, he said, see how many no's you can get. Just call up and make a game out of it. How many no's can you accomplish today? So
I've got a Dave Robards story for you that will be relevant to the podcast when we talk about, you know, what do I do in terms of, you know, growing my capabilities, and so we'll touch on that.
Excellent. So, okay, so here you were with IBM. By the way, IBM looked great. I mean, in 1980s, IBM looks amazing on a resume. So, from there, going into like where you're serving, like right now. So, I mean, so chemistry, it's just you're in a lab. I mean, maybe it's a couple of people that are, you know, of like-minded, you know, like-valued, but not serving in the people. How did you know that people, like serving other people? I mean, because you got if I understand right, a bachelor's of science in chemistry. You took off after 1 year after a PhD, left, went to IBM, and then coming out where you're at right now. What led to that switch where you wanted to serve people? I know you have by the numbers coaching. You're also a 10X business coach, and what you do now. Walk me through that.
Yeah, so what I realized was I really like to interface with people. I like talking to people. You know, one of my skills is communication. I'm very curious, so I like to learn. So I like to think that I can have disarming conversations with people. And as I got into working with IBM, my first job in IBM was I was responsible for all Ford Motor Company Europe, all of their data applications and big systems. And so what it meant was I would meet with those Ford executives who were running that big multi-billion-dollar enterprise, and we'd be having business discussions, and I'd be learning more and more about business, about their challenge. And in business, it's always about people, right? It's people challenges. How do you get the alignment? How do you get them motivated? How do you continue to keep them engaged? How do you help them grow? So I became much more business savvy. And then I had a call from, at the time, they were called Anderson Consulting, which was the consulting arm of Arthur Anderson, which has since become Accenture. And they wanted somebody to help build their manufacturing practice, but using software, manufacturing software. So I went to work for them, and I learned how to be a consultant, put large scale change management teams together. And that got me into helping businesses, helping them construct change programs, wrestling with all of those complexities. And I built that tradecraft to the point where an opportunity came to go to the US to build a new consulting business in the US, helping Fortune 500 companies. I remember saying to my wife, saying, I'm thinking about changing my job. She says, well, okay. And we got a 4-year-old and 2-year-old daughter. And we only had one car. And on a Saturday, my luxury was to go and play golf with my friends. And so they would generally pick me up and get me there, but my wife would come and pick me up and we'd go back home. So I was sitting there having a beer after the golf round, and a guy I knew in the US called me. He said, hey, Mick, I'm now the president of this consulting company in the US. And I'd helped him get the job. And I said, well, do you need any salespeople? He said, yes. I said, well, I'm keen. He said, when can you start? I said, how about 2 weeks? So my wife came to pick me up. I said, well, good news. I've made a decision about my next move. I said, the bad news is we're moving to the US in 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So she's a delight, been one of my great supporters, because I said to her when we got married, I said, look, I've got 3 aspirations for our marriage. I said, number 1, I said, we have 4 children. I said, number 2, we live abroad. She says, well, why live abroad? I said, well, look, when I was growing up, I would cycle to a birthday party, right? I'd cycle 20 miles. I'd get on my push bike and I'd cycle there and I'd cycle back. I said, when we got 4 kids, they could be living all over the planet, and they'll be in New York and London, and we'll look like real squares if we've just lived in the same place the whole time. So we've got to get international. I said, and the third thing is, I'd like to play golf every Saturday.
Yeah.
So we got 3 children. So she said, I'm not having another one.
Yeah.
We're living in the US, been here 26 years. This is our home now, and I didn't play golf every Saturday, but I play, happily, frequently.
I think that's a beautiful story. Okay, so I gotta ask this about like her family. You guys still have your family back in the UK?
Yes.
Was that difficult for 2 weeks? I mean, you dropped a bomb. I mean, she come to pick you up. She's been wrestling the kids all morning. You've been out swinging a golf club.
Yeah,
I can only imagine like what it would be like for my family.
The funniest thing happened. So I told the new company, I said, look, don't send me any meetings in the first week. Let me get our feet on the ground, because I'm bringing my family over. We'd rented a house, and so we flew in. We couldn't move into the house, I think, until the Monday. And we flew in over Saturday. We stayed in a hotel, and so we moved into the house. And the company had got this hot meeting in Dallas. So we were in Charlotte. So the first thing that morning, I had to get on a plane and fly to Dallas and leave her and the two kids, in this house. Well, what we didn't realize was there were no lights. The house was designed with lots of lamps, but it was unfurnished. So here she was sitting in the dark with two kids, with me being in Dallas. That wasn't the most auspicious of starts, but that's just one of those hurdles. And she, like me, we kind of ride with the punches. Those are the things that happen in life. And if you're centered, you just go with the flow. You make do. And the neighbors brought round a couple of deck chairs that they were able to sit on. We got through.
Find a milk crate for your coffee table.
Yep.
Yeah, I understand. Yep. Well, so there was another thing that you said in there that I really want to capture for those that are viewing this podcast. Guys, Mick said it, where he said there was this president of the company who he helped get him the job. And I was just thinking, when you said it, I was like, wow. I mean, like, you never know the relationships that you're making with people, how they can, it sounds like helping him get the job, expecting nothing in return, but just maintaining that relationship over however long that was. All of a sudden, he rises to the level of president status and invites you across the pond to be in the company as a sales. Talk to me just a little bit about that, because I think the relationships that, like, what we're building in our 10X community, in our accountability groups and so forth, like that, building great relationships that no doubt we'll be able to collaborate on projects together and grow in our own private journeys, and then no doubt intersect and then come back apart. Tell me about that. What your thoughts on that?
Well, the great Zig Ziglar, sales training guru, said you can get anything you want if you help other people get what they want. And now, as a sentence, it might sound a little contrived, but if you freely give of yourself, if you try and help people, and you do that as a natural part of your being, at some point it's going to come back and pay itself back. And in this instance, it did. I wasn't expecting that. I liked the guy. I thought he was a great fit for this opportunity. I lobbied for him, not because I thought I would be working with him, but just I thought he would be a great fit and be really, really successful, which he was. He was a great leader. But it just, all of a sudden, an opportunity popped out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. That's so good. I mean, I know relationships are so important, but when you hear a story like that, it's just such a fresh reminder of how important that they are when and you said it, freely giving of yourself, not expecting anything in return, but just knowing that, sometimes no good turn goes unrewarded or unpunished sometimes. But
and Tracy, like you're doing, you're giving people insights, ideas freely in your podcast, and who knows, it might resonate with somebody sometime in the future, or reach out to you. But you don't have any expectation of that. You're just being you and trying to help.
Yeah, so good. So okay, so you're in the States, and now tell us about the by the numbers, where you're in the 10X community, what we've where we got connected. Bring us there.
Right. Yeah. So for 20 of the years I've been here, I was working and helping big Fortune 500 companies, as you mentioned. And what I've done is I've distilled all of the improvement techniques that I've learned in working with those companies and packaged them in a way that I can apply them in the small to medium-sized business space. Wow. And I like being in that space because the small to medium-sized business owner is somebody on a mission. They're very passionate. They embrace change readily. If you show them a good idea and they believe in it, they will implement it. And so I've worked with so many of them, and they work incredibly hard, and sometimes they don't get the fruits of all of the labor that they put in. So I wanted to be able to help them, because the statistics around small business are pretty dire. 50% of small businesses fail within 4 years, and 90% fail in 9 years. And actually, the 1 out of 10 that does succeed to last 10 years isn't necessarily that profitable. So it's a little bit of a tragedy if an owner has sacrificed all of that time, commitment, energy, family time, put their whole being into this enterprise and finding, it's not delivering the return, the reward that they had anticipated. They might enjoy the journey, but they haven't an asset at the end of it that will continue to sustain them. So my goal is to, the chief killer of business is they run out of cash. So it's cash flow issue. So my mission is to reduce small business failure by 50%, and I do that by helping them understand their numbers to make better decisions so they can grow revenues, profit, cash, and wealth.
Yeah, that's so good. Tell me how, if you, and you're probably met with this question, how important is knowing your numbers?
It's incredibly important, because if you really see, a lot of people, some people don't understand the difference between profit and cash, right? Profit is still an accounting concept. You can't spend profit, you can spend cash. So cash is the lifeblood of business. And I have a phrase, and everybody knows the phrase "cash is king." Well, the phrase that I use is revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Because a lot of people think revenue, growing the business, all revenue is good revenue. That's not necessarily the case. Let me give you an example. If you went out and, let's say, you're a building contractor and somebody offers you a big project, it's a lot of revenue, but in order to win that work, they need you to discount a little bit more, so the margin you make on that project is a little less than you would normally. So you've got this big revenue, you're very happy, revenue, vanity's happy, sanity, the king, is not so happy because the gross margins aren't where they need to be. But the other thing is, in these big building contracts, is they're very, very slow to pay you. So your regular customers were paying you in 30 days. This particular one pays you in 60 days and retains money. So what happens is you do all of this work for a low margins, there's not enough money coming in, and then you don't get paid maybe for 90 days. Well, you've got to buy the materials. You've probably got to schedule some labor. You've got to do some installation work. You've got all of your overhead to cover. And so they come to this malady I called growing broke. Right? Because when businesses grow, they tend to consume cash. You need to feed the beast. And so what happens is they think, wow, great, we've got lots more revenue, we're making a profit, but all of a sudden they don't have enough cash, and there's only two places that you can go for cash. You can either use your own money, it's called equity, or you borrow the money, and that's called debt, and you normally borrow the money from the bank. Well, if you go to the bank and say, I need this much money, and they look at it and say it's a bit risky, they say, I'm not prepared to lend you that money right now. That's when a lot of businesses feel the pinch, and they get into a terrible state of, who do I pay? Do I pay my employees? Do I pay myself first? Or do I pay my suppliers in order to keep the business open? And it becomes very unenjoyable. That wasn't the dream that they had when they started. They didn't want to work for somebody else. They were great at their craft, their trade, their skill. And now they're in this business. And what they've done is they've engineered a job. And do you know what job stands for, Tracy?
Just over broke.
Correct. Yes, 10 out of 10. Yeah. So all they've got is a job with high risk, high personal risk, and their numbers aren't giving them the cash flow that they need to enjoy it, nor are they building an asset which will have value if they wanted to sell that business, pass it on to a family member, or sell it to the employees. So knowing your numbers in summary is critical. Unfortunately, most of us sit with a set of financial statements that we can't read because they were designed for CPAs. They weren't designed for business owners. So what I help people do is simply understand their numbers through the power of story and simple chapters. and how characters in their business interrelate, so that they understand how to make better decisions about the kind of clients they attract to get the right revenue, how they articulate their value so that they don't discount to win work, they articulate their specific value so they get good gross margins, and that we manage our business so that our cash comes in so that we're never surprised. And by putting in that, we take all of the angst out of the business, and then we put in the basic business blocks to help them build a wealth creating asset.
Yeah. Boy, I love that. And I know that's going to resonate with a lot of people that'll view this because they want to become a business owner. They don't want to be owned by their business. And without the knowledge of the numbers, then you fall into that trap where you got the revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but the cash is king and you don't got enough cash.
Yeah, and I didn't understand these numbers. I mean, I've had I went away to college. I've been trained by IBM. I've worked with blue chip companies, but when I was making these presentations to Fortune 500 companies, I'd often be in the boardroom, and the language of the boardroom is return on capital, discounted cash flow. I didn't have a clue what these were, and in order for me to be effective, I needed to learn that language. And I mean, my company was fantastic. They sent me to a place called INSEAD. It's the equivalent of Yale or Harvard in Europe. And we had a whole week on understanding strategy and finance. And it did my head in. I mean, I was more stupid at the end. I felt completely ill-informed, uneducated. My morale was a lot lower at the end because and I thought, I don't understand this. I met a guy who was able to explain the numbers in this very simple form that I now use today. And it became very, very empowering. And it takes all of the noise and the mystery and the complexity out of it. And it allows business owners to navigate towards success. It's a vital element of an entrepreneur, of a business owner.
I love that. It kind of circles back to how we started, just me and you got to leave to go anywhere. I mean, that's, you had to go through this, like where you said it did my head in. I didn't understand. I knew less coming out of it than I did going into it. And my morale was shot and everything. That's why sometimes we need a person. I think it was maybe John Maxwell, that one is too low of a number for greatness. So if you want to get really, really good, it's going to be the byproduct of a lot of people wanting you to be good too. They're pulling on that same road. They're trying to help you. And that's the power of mentorship. Tell me about your, and I cannot believe how fast our time has gone, but tell me about your proudest achievement so far in your journey. I mean, like you've got, just so much to be thankful for as you've reflected on. 20 years serving Fortune 500s, no doubt all of that volume of wisdom, that the knowledge that you're able to now share with the small business owner to help them out, and knowing the finance, knowing how to read that sheet that most owners, especially entrepreneurs won't give time for, and owners don't understand it. And now you're aware of that. What is the proudest achievement? What is of everything that you've done thus far on your journey?
I think that the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that we took that risk to leave, our culture, our home, our friends, our family, go to a land where we knew nobody. I just peripherally knew one person, and we plopped. And I said to my wife, I said, look, it doesn't really matter where we live. I just need a good airport because I'm going to be flying around a lot. And she liked the good weather, and North Carolina still has the 4 seasons. That's why we picked Charlotte. So I'm proud of the fact that we were able to do that as a family, that we've grown stronger together, and we built success around that. A lot of people, and it seems quite natural and normal. Oh yeah, no, we just moved to the States, and everybody else goes, how did you do that? And that, I guess that risk, the ability to take risk and to have that's so to me, I think I'm a little bit of an adventurer. And I want things to be a little exciting. I'm never quite satisfied. I'm always setting new goals. And I put down a quote which I wanted to share with your listeners here, which I think it's very pertinent to me. It might resonate with people. It's by J.M. Barrie. He's the guy that wrote Peter Pan. And he says, the life of every man is a diary in which he means to write one story and writes another. And in his humblest hour is when he compares the volume as it is with what he vowed to make it. So, you look back, and so I'm always thinking, there's another chapter. There's more to do. I can't quite get ready to say, okay, the book's done. It's over. Here's the volume. It's still being written.
Yeah. That's. You said that my father has a quote from Winnie the Pooh, of all, how like the old Winnie the Pooh, the Disney, where they turn the page and they're starting to read, and Winnie the Pooh's going to do something, and so when they come down to the close of a chapter, and we're going to go to the next chapter. Oh, what will I be doing there? So it had that same flavor, and when you said that, I was like, oh my goodness, it sounds like Dad quoting Winnie the Pooh. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that quote. Tell me this, 2 more questions. When, obviously you've lived a great life. You've gone through a lot of challenges being an adventurer. How are you developing and growing yourself right now? At this stage of your life, where you're at right now, what are you doing to grow yourself?
Well, I promised to tell you the Dave Robard story.
Please do.
I was at the same mastermind you were at, the 10X mastermind, Grant Cardone 10X mastermind, and he'd lost a lot of weight, and he had set himself a 10X goal of being the next Marvel superhero, right? Because a 10X goal, it's got to be so big that if you achieve it, it fundamentally changes your life. You have to write down the goal as if you'd already achieved it, because the brain is an amazing thing, and it imagines the future. And so I thought, well, I need a 10X goal. And as you mentioned, I went to Everest Base Camp, but my knees would not take me to the summit. I hadn't planned to go to the summit, but I've always wanted to go to the summit. I thought, that's too far. So what can I do? And I thought, well, I'm going to swim the English Channel. It's 21 miles of sea between England and France, frigid water, jellyfish, no sharks, thankfully. You've got to navigate all of the shipping lanes. It's a big undertaking, right? Maybe 300 people a year attempt it, only 20% make it. So with that in mind, that ambition, that aspiration, you start to be aware of different possibilities. And so I thought I'd better start taking a swimming lesson. So I had a swimming lesson with one person. It wasn't great. So I thought, I'm going to do some more work in the pool. And I saw a gentleman in the corner, big, tall, African-American, 6'5". And he was teaching this lady, and he was saying things to her at both ends of the pool and talking. I thought, he seems to know what he's talking about. I'm going to go and introduce myself to him. So I said, and I said the most stupid thing. I said, do you give swimming lessons? He said, well, that's what I'm doing. And my last swimming teacher was not very impressive. So I thought I'd better qualify their ability to teach. I said, is your background in swimming? And he looked at me and he said, well, I would say so. He said, I was on the 2008 and 2012 Olympic teams for the USA. I said, oh, really? I said, that was when Michael Phelps was swimming. Yeah. He says, yes. I said, I hold the world record, and we won gold in 2012 with Michael Phelps in the 4x100 relay. And I thought, okay, you're my guy.
Yeah, that's right.
And I told him what I wanted to do. And I said to him, I said, look, it doesn't really matter if I don't swim the channel, but I'll be a better, fitter person through all the training. He said, you're working with me now. We don't say can't. We don't say don't. And I had my first lesson with him yesterday in the pool. I was so excited. We had an hour. I got to tell you. So he videoed my stroke at the beginning of the hour and at the end of the hour. I've never had a swimming lesson before, formal swimming lesson. Yeah, when I was at school, they just throw you in the pool and you splash around.
Yep.
And so the transformation was amazing. So a couple of things I want to impart to the listeners. Number one, right? Set yourself something aspirational and your mind will be alert. I mean, who knew there was a gold medal athlete right next to me willing to mentor? He's not going to teach me just swimming. I told him, I said, I want what's in your head. How did you prepare for 20 years before the Olympics? And then the 4 years between 8 and 12, my swim preparation is probably 2 years. I want to know what goes on in an Olympian's minds. That's the first thing. The second thing is, seek out mentors. There are people out there who have been there, done things, who can take you to the next level. You just have to be curious and open. So don't be frightened to go up to somebody and talk to them and ask them and get to know them. They're willing, they want to impart their wisdom. They don't want to waste it. They've earned it and they want to share it generally. Successful people want to share. So go find somebody to share success with.
Mm-hmm. So good. I was thinking about when you said that, when somebody's telling me a story, I like to feel the story. So I like to be in their shoes. I like to, what would I be doing at this time? And I'm just thinking here, I would be splashing around and I'm seeing somebody over there training somebody. I may be the guy that saw an opportunity, and maybe even some on the show with us today, on this episode, would see that opportunity and watch it wave goodbye to it, where you just said, I'm going to go introduce myself. And I'm going to go ahead and ask the dumb question. Do you give lessons? That's what I'm doing. You see? So there's so many people. I've had to pull myself out and say, no, Tracy, you got to go ask, you got to go talk, you got to go introduce yourself, because you've let too many opportunities pass you by because you just didn't. I mean, you never would have met this guy. You never would have had that training. You would have, in an hour's lesson, totally transformed your style had you not just got out of the pool, walked up to the guy and just asked and introduced yourself. That's so powerful. And of course, the aspirational goals and seeking out mentors are great follow-ups to that. But just, I think what Grant Cardone says is the number one rule for success. The first rule is you got to show up. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was hearing from that. So, okay, so someone's listening to the call. You probably already have answered this question, but this last one, if someone's looking at this, they're listening to us. They've done the entire 51 minutes of our time together with us, and they're looking to go into either business for themselves, or they're looking to make that big. They can almost feel it, that life-changing decision. What advice could you give them that might help them to better prepare or even make that choice?
I think it's an extension of what we just mentioned, Tracy. Go and talk to somebody who's already done it. Not somebody who wants to do it or thinks they know things about it and can wax lyrical. Go and find a successful person. There'll be somebody in your network that you can reach out to and say, well, what were the things that, and they'll share some things with you. So go and find yourself a mentor. Go and talk to 2 or 3 people and then give you an insight or 2. Don't go in naked, uneducated. The second thing I would say is you've got to really have some basic understanding of business and the numbers. And I've got a free book that does just that. You can find it at mixfreebook.com. That's MICKS, mixfreebook.com. And it just tells you, it's an easy read, tells you about the numbers. So become literate with the numbers, go find yourself a mentor, and try and suck as much information as you can. So at least you are armed with some good questions to ask. You will fail, you will make mistakes, but you'll pick yourself up and keep on moving forward.
Love it. So thank you for that, and I'll drop guys. I'll drop the link for that in the description of this podcast for Mick's free book. Thank you for sharing that with our listeners. Where if people want to find you, maybe there's a small business owners are like, dude, this guy's got 20 years of working with Fortune 500. No doubt he can teach me these things. I don't want to just be. I want to have some cash flow. I want to know my numbers better. How would you prefer that they reach out to you? Is it LinkedIn? Is it an email? How would you like them to reach out?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the platform that I typically do most of my communication with. So you'll find me under Mick Holly, or you can just type into your browser speaktomick.com, and that'll open up my calendar. I'm always willing to talk to people and see what I can do to help them in their business, give them some ideas.
Excellent. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Mick, so much for joining me on this call.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Tracy. It's a delight to be here.
Awesome. And by the way, thank you, listener, for joining us in our episode today. Thank you for following TMC Coaching, and you can learn more about me, what I do online at tmccoaching.org. And if you'd like more information about what I can do for you and how we can work together, you can hit me up at tracy@tmccoaching.org is my email. And so until next time, you guys, surround yourself with great people, just like Mick that we had on the call today. These types of people can elevate your thinking, and they can inspire you to dig deep within yourself and do more for others. Thank you, guys. We'll talk to you next time.
On behalf of Tracy, thank you for watching this episode of the Collaborative Entrepreneur Podcast. Be sure to like this video and turn on notifications for future episodes coming out every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to learn more about Tracy and the work that he does, you can find us at 180turnarounds.com. Also on all social media platforms under 180 Turnarounds. If you want to get in touch with Tracy about being on the Collaborative Entrepreneur Podcast, you can do so by emailing us at tracy@tmccoaching.org. Let us know the industry that you're in, as well as some wins and learns that you've had along the way. So until next time, let's win together.